Okay. Hello. Okay.
Hi.
Start by saying your name, what school you work at, and what grade level you teach.
Okay, my name is Ashley Fitzner. I teach at Barbers Hill Elementary South, and I teach third grade language arts, so reading and writing.
I love reading and writing. That's my favorite thing to teach.
It's my
So
jam.
you probably deal with English language learners often then, especially if you're teaching
Yes.
reading. What's one of your favorite things about teaching ELL students?
Oh, so my favorite thing about teaching ELL students is how it grows me as a teacher, and also to see their growth from the beginning to the end of the year. So English language learners almost never leave our classrooms the same that they came in, or that's always the hope. And especially in third grade, because it's just a maturity, a grade level where they come in
Hmm.
almost as like little kids, little babies, and they leave um, much more mature, and to see their language mature as well is really, really cool. You see that with all students, but with the English language learners, it's really, really evident from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and just their growth in reading as well. So
So
that's my favorite part about teaching those kids.
one thing that you said you teach third grade, and I know third grade is difficult in general because that's normally when standardized testing is
First year.
introduced. How do you see like self-efficacy and confidence in ELL students compared to normal students?
So the ELLs are always more nervous. Their
Expected.
self-efficacy and confidence is always a little bit lower than our regular students, just because they're trying to do a lot more than our regular students are. They're trying to just understand the English words that they're reading, like what the words even mean, or how to read them too.
Yeah.
And so they're always a little bit more nervous, but I also see their confidence as far as their effort level is. So a lot of the times those ELL students are so much more eager to give you their very best effort. They want to make their teacher proud, and so even though their confidence is a little bit lower, they have an effort level most of the time that my regular just general education students do not.
Yeah, they
So
kind of have to push a little bit harder, and that gives
yes,
them more
yes.
drive. And so, are there any difficulties specifically with ELL students that you have that you don't necessarily have with your other kids?
Oh my gosh, so many. And especially this year. Oh my gosh. So I had a really unique situation this year. So my class started out as the online class. So our district actually went back to school first thing, like in August. We went straight back to school face to face, but I kept an online class. And a lot of the ELLs chose online, which was shocking to me, but they did. And so to see the difference in them from online to in the classroom, it was so difficult to because I had to completely reassess once I came back to the classroom,
Yes.
because it's just a completely different environment. And so, but in general, there's so much more difficulty with the ELLs than your regular students. So you have to first baseline, like, where are they with their English language as far as
Mm-hmm.
speaking and understanding what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
and then to go into the reading. That's an aspect that you don't have to do with your regular students.
Yeah.
So, at the beginning of the year, we're really just trying to see where they are, because even if they are not in the bilingual program, they're second year monitor or first year monitor, and they've moved out into an ESL class. Their speaking and their listening can still be on the lower end,
Yeah.
especially in third grade. So having to assess that from the start and really figure out where they are with
Uh-huh.
that, and then go into the reading is always difficult at first. And then just they struggle more in reading
So, would
in
there
general.
be any specific strategies or methods that you would tell future teachers to implement that might help English language learning students in their classroom?
Absolutely. First and most important one is extra time. And you're going to hear this like so much: extra time, extra time, extra time. That and appropriate wait time too. So when I call on my ELL students, I'm going to give them more time. And it feels at first, when you're a first year teacher, it feels so awkward and so uncomfortable because you feel like you are giving them an ridiculous amount of
Mm-hmm.
time. 1 minute feels like forever when you're standing up in the classroom and it's silent, but it's giving that student time to really process what you just said and the question that you asked, and they're trying to process it in English and translate it to themselves in
Yeah.
Spanish, and and then to really have that time. And also, one strategy that I learned when I was student teaching was also, when you're giving them that extra time, make sure that you teach the rest of your class not to raise their hand, because what happens is when you call on that student and they know the answer at first, they've processed what you thought, they know the answer, but as soon as they start seeing their classmates raise their hand like they know it before they do, their brains are like, oh no, I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure, I can't remember, and they're trying to process all of that at the same time. So I always tell my class, once I've called on somebody, you have to put your hand down, and you cannot raise your hand until I ask another question or ask for help, because it just gives them that time without the urgency to think faster.
Yeah. Really lets them marinate on the question. So,
Yes, yes, and not just in oral responses as well, in their written work also.
mm-hmm.
So where it might take one student 20 minutes to complete an assignment, my ELL sometimes take 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So just always making sure that they're aware and comfortable with the fact that you don't have to rush.
Yes.
You have the time to process your thinking before you put down an answer.
So one strategy that I've been reading about is using, what is it called? They're called, I don't know how to pronounce it. Let me see. Cognates. It's like taking words that are very similar phonetically and easy to say in both languages. Um, because there's a lot of English words where students can't pronounce it the correct way, and it makes them self-conscious about speaking in the class, or it really
Yes.
hurts them reading wise or phonetically. Like, do you have any strategies or things that I could do as a teacher that would help my kids build the confidence when it comes to their spoken language, or if they're reading and they have any difficulty reading words because they're not familiar with those letters?
As far as, I'm gonna go with the reading first, because my
Uh-huh.
students, my ELLs that I've had experience with, I think the strategy that you were talking about is really, really important in those younger grade levels too.
Uh-huh.
You see it in the older grade levels too, but usually by the time they get to third grade, they're a little bit more comfortable with this speaking. Not always.
Uh-huh.
There's still some of that, but reading for sure. Whisper phones are amazing for ELL learners. So I don't know if you're familiar with those, but it's a little like,
It's
it
so
looks like a little phone.
cute.
And what it does is, when they're silent reading, so if they're taking a test or they're doing something that's silent, it allows them to whisper into it, but it comes back into their ear loud enough for them to hear what they're saying. So ELLs need that auditory also. They need to be able to not just see the word and read it, they need to hear it
Mm-hmm.
also. And so when they're saying it in or reading it in English, they need to say it out loud, but you can't always have them speak it out loud in
Mm-hmm.
every situation. So the whisper phones are so important because it just allows them to have that auditory as well. And so it really helps a lot.
I have never heard of that. That is so cool. Wow.
Oh, they're the coolest thing. They are great, not just for ELLs. They're great for, I mean, I have a class set of them, and I have students of all types that use them. But definitely for lower readers
Uh-huh.
and ELLs, they are a must. They're called whisper phones. They're amazing.
I think that was all my questions. Oh, one last question. Have you noticed if an ELL student, this is a personal question of mine, I just want to know the answer to. Have you
Okay.
noticed if ELL students are struggling in reading, if there is a direct correlation with them struggling in other academic areas?
Well, if they struggle in reading, they absolutely struggle in writing.
Uh-huh.
So in my classroom, that's what I see. I'm lucky to be at a school that's departmentalized. So I get to teach only reading and writing, which is where I'm comfortable. But my partner teacher, Mr. Burke, he teaches math, science, and social studies, and he absolutely sees the struggle,
Yeah.
especially so third grade is a lot of word problems in math. And so
Oh.
when they struggle in reading, they struggle in math with the word problems because they have to understand what they're reading. The funniest thing, we took our benchmark test just here recently, and one of my ELLs raised his hand and he was like, "Mrs. Sir, question." And I was like, "Okay, well, I can't really help you on anything." And he was like, "Okay, I know that this is a math problem and there's supposed to be numbers, but there were tally marks." And so it looked completely different. Like he was looking for numbers, and to him, those are L's.
Oh
Those
my
are
gosh.
not, those are not, he was like, "Are these L's supposed to be numbers?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." So, with the benchmark, we have a little bit more flexibility than obviously on, a real state standardized test. But I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't help you with
Those
that."
are some things you would never even
it was
think.
the funniest thing that, even in math, they struggle when everything doesn't look the same as what they're used to. And then just the reading, having to read a word problem. And if they don't understand what it's asking them, they're obviously gonna struggle.
Yeah.
There too. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize half of those things. That was so cool. I learned a lot.
Oh my gosh, it's so fun. You learn. That's the one thing about teaching is that every year, one thing about all students, but ELLs and then SPED also, like if you taught one, you have taught one ELL student. Like you'll never see another one that's the same situation. They're all different. They all have their different abilities. Even mine in my class this year, I've got some that are the lowest of the low, and I've got one that's second year monitor that is the highest student in my class.
Wow.
So yes. So it's just a matter of where they are in their journey toward completely exiting and totally being on their own as far as the English language. But
that's so neat.
It's so fun.
Lifelong learner as a teacher because you're constantly learning.
Always. I always tell my students that I learn as much from them throughout the year as they learn from me, for sure.
So sweet.
Yes.
Well, that was all of my questions. I appreciate you.
Yay!
Interview. It was fantastic.
Absolutely. Anytime you need me, I'm here.